Hi there. Welcome to the last chapter of the Marten's class story, which is the mystery of the hidden gold. We're on chapter 21. We're hoping that they're all rescued now. So let's see what happened to Simon Fox. Next afternoon, Emily was reclining on the sofa in the guest lounge with her foot propped up on a pile of cushions, writing up a full report of Operation Gold, including Operation Map Thief, in her notebook. She spent the morning at the hospital having x-rays. Her ankle wasn't broken, it turned out, just badly sprained. Now it was strapped up and the pain was wearing off. At least having to deal with doctors and hospitals had distracted her parents from asking too many questions about how one of their guests had ended up being stranded on a remote island, rescued by a coast guard and arrested for theft and attempted murder. Although Emily had glossed over the whole being threatened at gunpoint episode. For some reason, parents could be a bit funny about things like that, even ones as laid back as hers. The lighthouse was unusually quiet. Mum had gone out to do the food shopping and Dad was upstairs doing battle with some paperwork at his desk. The Hartley family were at the beach and Mr. Tanaka had checked out that morning. When the doorbell rang, Drift sprang up from his post of Emily's side. She could tell from his happy ears that it was Jack and Scott at the door. "Let yourselves in," she called. "How's the invalid?" Jack asked. "I'm not an invalid," Emily protested. "I've only sprained my ankle." Jake grinned. "Great, I was hoping you'd say that. You won't be wanting a present then?" He held up a bag. "Present?" Emily was shocked at the notion of boys bringing her a present. She nearly fell off the sofa. Scott reached into the bag and pulled out a mammoth tub of ice cream. "Rocky Road," he said, "from Dottie's. But if you don't want it, we'd better take it away." Emily grabbed for the tub. "Spoons are in the kitchen." Scott was running back down the spiral staircase with 3 spoons and a bowl for Drift when the bell rang again. He opened the door and came face to face with Detective Inspector Hassan. The size of the grizzly bear, in a perfectly tailored, old-fashioned cream suit, D.I. Hassan was an imposing presence. He lowered his bulk into an armchair opposite Emily's sofa and regarded the 3 friends with stern gaze. Even the spectacular black moustache seemed to be bristling with anger. "Uh-oh," Jack thought. "We're in deep trouble." D.I. Hassan pinched the razor-sharp creases above his knees in his trousers to straighten them, even though they looked as if they were precision-checked with a ruler already. Then he puffed out his cheeks and sighed. "Your actions yesterday were extremely foolhardy. You could have got yourselves killed. Please leave these matters to appropriate law enforcement officers in the future. You must never approach an armed man." Jack put his hand up. "Excuse me, Fox wasn't armed when we approached him. He was being a total wally, paddling around in circles in a sinking dinghy. And we had no idea that there was going to be a gun buried with the gold," Scott explained. He wanted to point out a few more things, like the fact that they hadn't approached Simon Fox when he had pointed the gun at them, but had run away as fast as their legs could carry them, faster than their legs could carry them in Emily's case. And as for the appropriate law enforcement officers, they hadn't exactly been the whole bunch of them on the duty on Gulliver's Island. But somehow he didn't think D.I. Hassan was interested in debating the details of this matter. "Well, now the lecture is over." D.I. Hassan's moustache suddenly twitched as he smiled. "I would like to thank you for helping catch a devilish and ruthless criminal. Interpol has been interested in Sebastian Fargo for years." "Sebastian Fargo?" Scott asked, wondering whether the inspector had accidentally skipped ahead to his next meeting. "Who's he?" "A man with many identities," D.I. Hassan said. "Simon Fox is just one of his aliases." Emily's eyes widened. "Oh, he's a smuggler, isn't he? Is it drugs? No, weapons. Of course, that's how he knew about the old rifle." D.I. Hassan shook his head. "No, not for smuggling. Fraud. He hoodwinks elderly people into investing their life savings into bogus schemes. He promises them enormous profits, but Of course, they never see a penny of their money again. Emily frowned. That's so mean. Indeed, D.I. Hassan agreed. His usual MO is to move in to an area and befriend one of the local ladies. He worms his way into her confidence and taps her for all the local information he needs to target people with money to invest. Scott laughed. I wonder who that could have been. D.I. Hassan stroked his moustache as if it was a pet cat. Obviously, I'm not at liberty to name names. Of course not, Emily said with a grin. You're not one for tittle-tattle. Oh, such a nice young man, that Simon Wolfe. Jack hunched over and placed his hands on his hip in the perfect impression of his arch-enemy. Does that mean Mrs. Loveday will be thrown into prison for being Fox's accomplice? He asked. Of course not. She didn't know anything about Fox's activities. Not that I'm saying it was Mrs. Loveday, of course, D.I. Hassan added hastily. He cleared his throat. Anyway, I didn't come to talk about that. I've been asked to present you with these. He placed his briefcase on his knee and took out a glossy plastic bag. Scott exchanged doubtful looks with Jack and Emily. What was D.I. Hassan going to give them? Handcuffs? Asbos? We have informed the South African Embassy in London that the stolen Kruger ponds have been found, D.I. Hassan said. They will try to track down the descendants of the original owner and return the money to them. And some of the gold will be put on display in various museums. But the ambassador has asked that you each be given one of the coins as a reward. He handed Jack, Emily and Scott a small leather pouch. Scott eased open the drawstring and slid out the beautiful gold case containing the gleaming Kruger pond set on a little cushion of red velvet. Jack read on the engraving of his presentation box. Presented to Jack Carter in recognition of his courage and honesty. He grinned. Courage and honesty. Yep, that's me to a T. These coins are highly valuable, D.I. Hassan said. Keep them safe. Of course, Emily said. She would always treasure the coin as a reminder of their adventure of Gulliver's Island. Jack held up his Kruger pond and wondered whether it was worth enough for a private plane. Scott shot him a look. Only joking. Hey, where's Drift's reward? He was the most courageous of all of us. Hearing his name, Drift pricked up his ears and barked happily. Emily ruffled his fur. He can share mine. And there's one more thing, D.I. Hassan said seriously. Here it comes, Jack thought. I knew there'd be a catch. The inspector reached into his briefcase and handed them an envelope. One of the elderly couples who almost invested their life savings in Fox's scam asked that you be given these rewards. Scott pulled 3 brand new £50 notes out of his envelope and smiled. It wasn't going to buy a fast car or a car or a gold-plated palace, but it was more than enough to replace the mobile phone Fox had smashed against the wall. I'm going to put mine in my savings account, Emily said. Jack slid the notes over each other, enjoying the crackle of the crisp new paper. He never held so much cash in his hand. He could think of a million things he could do with this money, and none of them had anything to do with bank accounts. First, there had been that enormous chocolate cake, and then another visit to Planet Adventure. And Jack's daydream was interrupted by D.I. Hassan hoisting himself out of his chair to leave. The detective inspector glanced at the tub of rocky road melting on the coffee table. I can see you've got some important business to attend to, so I'll leave you to it, he said. As he reached the door, he looked back over his shoulder. Just try to stay away from trouble, eh? Emily smiled sweetly. We will. At least until we finish this ice cream, Jack mumbled, popping a loaded spoon into his mouth as D.I. Hassan closed the door behind him. Emily dug her spoon into the rocky road before Jack could polish off the entire tub. Of course, if trouble comes looking for us, she said, what can we do? Scott laughed. He had a feeling that, in Castle Key, it wouldn't be long before it did. And that's the end. So there's lots more of these adventure books if you want to try and find them online, or when you're next able to go into a library, have a look. Right, take care.